Hello viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are diving into the explosive viral speech that has shaken social media to its core. A passionate and deeply personal message from a former military service member has caught fire, and not just for what she said, but for the raw truth behind her words. In a fiery and emotional charged outpouring, she calls out political apathy, systemic surveillances, and the betrayal of the marginalized communities, especially black women and trans service members. She speaks from lived experience, recounting how she was spied on, silenced, and gaslight, and now she says it's happening again, only this time on a much larger scale. From the VA to the Air Force Academy, from the Targaryen party era to today's political infighting, this woman is not holding back, and the internet is divided. Some are hailing her as a truth teller, a whistleblower, a voice for the voiceless. Others are accusing her of being dramatic or conspiratory. In this video, we will unpack the key moments from her viral speech, the powerful reactions across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and what this means for the future of activism, politics, and the vegetarian community. Buckle up, this one is going to be intense.
I will never forgive you leftists. I will never kiki. I will never kumbaya. I will never be fucking nice to y'all that let this happen. I found out today, during a group therapy setting, that the Tesla man and his Bow Wow organization is spying on federal employees. That includes the VA. They were physically in my VA facility recently, and our group leader told us today that they can no longer guarantee confidentiality because we're being spied on. And maybe not even the continuation of that group, because they're spying on us. And should we say something that they don't like in a therapy session, especially something having to do with this? And this is exactly what my abuser did to me during 2016, 2017, which was during the first Tangerine party. She cloned my computer. She cloned my computer so she could see everything that I was doing, particularly if I was reaching out for help, if I tried to go to Equal Opportunity, if I wanted to go to the Inspector General, if I wanted to contact the Airman Defense Council or a lawyer, or even the base chaplain. She could see, so that she could stop me from going to get help. She would contact those people before I was even able to meet with them, to tell them not to meet with me. And then she took Instant Messenger off of my computer so that I could not easily access anybody for help. I told you that this happened during the last Tangerine party, that certain types of people were emboldened to do freakish shit like that. And a bunch of y'all said that I was fucking crazy. You said that I was insane for attributing what happened to me to that fucking person. I told you I told you about the trans ban. I told you about the Muslim ban. I told you what I saw from the inside when I was active duty military. I told you that how a person treats the military in that seat, how a person treats the fucking military, who they have complete omnipotent control over, is indicative of what they would do if they had control over the entire American population. And you said I was fucking crazy. And now it is literally happening. It's literally happening. What happened to me personally is literally happening to other people. I told you about the trans ban. I told you about the Muslim ban. And now I'm watching trans students, trans cadets being dismissed from my alma mater, the Air Force Academy, I believe without credits, without being allowed to graduate. Without being allowed to graduate after going through the hell that is the Air Force Academy and having to go through it while being trans. I can't even imagine. I'm literally reliving 2016 and 2017 over again, and I have to be very for real with myself about how much this is actually triggering me and sending me back. But what I can't fucking get over is that this was avoidable. The solution was clear. We didn't need a crystal ball to see what was going to happen. He said exactly what he was going to do, both here and abroad. He said it, and a bunch of you that masquerade around as progressives. Some of you with platforms told people to stay home. Mad Hatters are going to do what they're going to do. They are predictable. It's a cult. They're going to do what they're going to do. But those of you who supposedly cared about progress, about the most disenfranchised and vulnerable of us, a bunch of you told people to stay home. And you weren't all palm colored either. A bunch of you were people of color. A bunch of you were other fucking black people that decided they want to talk about, both sides are bad. Both sides are bad. And, she's not above criticism either. And actually, she's a cop. And actually, having a black woman president won't save us. Some of you advocated for voting for the tangerine in order to punish Kamala. Which is interesting because the last election, we all understood the assignment. We all understood that another tangerine party couldn't happen. So even though the choice was not perfect, as it literally never fucking is, the choices are never goddamn perfect. Never has been in the history of this fucking country. We understood the assignment and we did it anyway. But for some reason this time, everybody needs to vote with their conscience. And then you want to pretend like you're any fucking better than those Mad Hatters. No, you fucking let it happen and you hate black women too. You just aren't as outright about it. You just want to do it while masquerading around and putting on the aesthetic of being a fucking progressive person, of being a revolutionary. And then you have the nerve to get all up in your fucking feelings when the 92% say, we're staying the fuck home. Y'all fix this. And you're like, how dare you? Because your liberties are being threatened too. They're gonna make you slaves again. They're gonna come after you next. Why are you staying your black ass home? Just because so-and-so is black doesn't mean they're above criticism. Well, I will never forgive you leftists. I will never kiki. I will never kumbaya. I will never be fucking nice to y'all that let this happen.
I've seen a couple of these videos now talking about how people who did the right thing will never forgive those who voted for this and those who actively chose not to vote against it. If you haven't already watched this creator's video, please go do it. It's a heartbreaking view of how she, as a veteran, is being personally affected, and veterans at large. That does not even consider the mass effects of this at scale. Now, for me, forgiveness was never on the table. I'm a Cancer that can hold a grudge harder and longer than Kim Kardashian clinging to her last scraps of relevance. But for those of you who champion the idea that they were the same, I think it's important to take stock of where we are right now. When I first started posting 6 months ago, my husband said, hey, babe, please just don't say or post anything that could compromise my job. Now, he's a surgeon, so I was pretty in the clear. But yesterday, for the first time, my rational and highly measured husband said, babe, please don't say or post anything that would cause you to disappear. 6 months. I've been posting on this app for 6 months, and we are in a radically different world. I am an American-born U.S. citizen, just like him. We are beyond forgiveness. The one thing I know for sure is that history will not remember you fondly. Not that your absolution matters to me in any way, shape, or form, but maybe get to work. Try to make an actual difference. And maybe one day, history will remember you as a little bit more than a bunch of racist sheep swayed by grifters and con artists. This theory is more important than the lived experiences of Black and brown people.
Let's talk about what just happened, because what we witnessed in that viral clip wasn't just a rant. It wasn't just an emotional outburst. It was a testimony, one born from lived trauma, systemic betrayal, and the haunting repetition of history. This woman, a former military member, stood in her truth and laid bare the layers of pain, surveillances, discrimination, and political gaslighting she endured, and she did it with zero filter. Whether you agree with her or not, her voice cut through the noise, and it struck a nerve, not just because of what she said, but because of how she said it. She talked about being spied on by her abusers during her military service. She described her computer being cloned, her communications cut off, her attempt to reach for help actively sabotaged, not metaphorically but literally. That is not hyperbole. That is psychological warfare, and is a form of abuse that many people, especially women and marginalized service members, are for all too familiar with. But here is where it gets darker. She's now allegedly that similar surveillances is happening again, this time with the VA system. She claims a therapy group leader revealed that outside actors are listening in on what should be confidential healing spaces. And if true, that is not just unethical, is a violation of medical privacy, and it sends a chilling message to veterans seeking mental health support. Now let's zoom out. She's connecting these recent violations to a broader political pattern. She calls it the Targaryen Party, a not so substitute nod to the Trump era. And she's not just pointing fingers at conservatives, she's putting progressive, independent, and so called allies on blast too. Because according to her, the betrayal didn't just come from the outside. It came from people who choose apathy, people who sat out election, people who said both sides are bad and let these chips fall. And honestly, she's not wrong to be angry. We can have all the political nuisance in the world, but at some point we have to admit that policy affect people's lives, livelihood, safety, the trans ban, the Muslim ban, the military purges. This wasn't abstract political theories. These were real decisions made by real people with real consequences. And now she's watching it all unfold again in real time. She spoke about trans cadets being removed from the Air Force Academy, allegedly without being allowed to graduate without receiving credit for their work. And after surviving one of the most grueling academic and physical programs in the country, that is heartbreaking. And it's infuriating, especially when we remember how this country has historically treated those who dare to exist at the intersection of service and marginalized identity. And then there is the most emotional jarring part of the clip. Her fury at people who told her she was crazy, the people who invalidate her experiences, mock her warnings, and gaslight her for drawing connection between abuse of power and political ideology. She's not just screaming in the void, she's holding receipts. She warned us. She warned about the slippery slope. She warned that how leadership treats the military is a preview of how they will treat the rest of the world, the country. And now, as she sees surveillances, censorship, and targeted oppression escalating, she is re-experiencing a trauma she never fully healed from. This is what it means to live with PTSD while watching history repeat itself. But she's also issuing a challenge, a moral one. She's saying, where were you to the progressive who opted out, the leftists who weaponized criticism to suppress turnout, the pseudo radicals who pretended that electing a black woman wasn't a meaningful step because it wasn't a perfect one? And her argument is simple: it's never perfect, it never will be. But disengagement is complicity. There is a specific line in her speech that stuck with me. You hate black women too. You just hasn't as outright about it. And yeah, that is a brutal line. But it's also a wake-up call. Because progressive movements are not immune to misology. They are not immune to transphobia. They are not immune to classism, atheism, or the kind of intellectual gatekeeping that leads to voter apathy. She's reminding us that revolution without accountability is just ego in a different costume. And what we are seeing now in her story, in the institution she's calling out, is a breakdown in trust. In the VA, in the government, in political alliances, and most painfully in community. She's mourning what could have been prevented. She's mourning the people who stayed home. And she's mourning the safety she never had. That is why this clip is so important, because it's not just about her. It's about a broader systemic failure and the consequences of inaction. Now to the reactions. Some people are praising her as brave, a whistleblower, a truth teller. They see her pen and they validate it. But others, and you will see this in the comments on Reddit, on Twitter, they are dismissing her, calling her paranoid, calling her mentally unwell. And that is the same tactic that institutions have used for generations to silence people who challenge the status quo, dismiss the messenger, and you don't have the address to the message. But if we do that again, we are making the same mistake. Whether or not you agree with every word she said, we own it to ourselves to listen. Not performatively, not defensively, but actually listen. Because her words come from a place of lived experience, and ignoring that is how we got here in the first place. So here's the takeaway. Surveillances, censorship, political betrayal, these are not abstract ideas. They are happening to real people, and they are happening now. And if we care about equality, if we care about justice, if we care about protecting each other, especially those who have already sacrificed everything in service of this country, we have to do more than vote. We have to show up constantly, imperfectly, but relentlessly. Because this isn't about one person's pen, it's about a pattern we keep refusing to break. If you found this value in this video, take a moment to like, comment and share, not just for the algorithm but to keep conversation like this alive. Subscribe for more in-depth commentary, and as always, stay informed, stay critical, stay human. Thanks for watching.